coal production in Queensland is falling, but coal has rarely been more valuable. And when you look at the data properly, the story is very different from the headline narrative. In this video, I'm going to walk through Queensland's coal production from 2010 to 2024, highlighting the years post Russia's war with the Ukraine. I'm going to convert into energy units, layer in prices, and explain why coal has quietly shifted from a volume driven commodity to a value and energy driven commodity, especially after the Ukraine energy shock. So, we're going through these key points here today. Um, Output value remains high relative to tonnage, reflecting price strength and improved energy yield. So we'll be looking at the tons produced over this sort of 14-year period versus the the petajoules in terms of production. And we really just want to look at how coal has sort of performed throughout the Australian economy here. Production here. Okay, so Queensland coal mines, 2010 to 24. From throughout this period, or between 2010 through to 2018, Queensland coal output increased steadily. Both open cut and underground production expanded, driven by Asian steel demand and thermal coal exports. Okay, so we can see that here. There's been a bit of an increase here. 150 total producing coal mines, coal output value 341 billion there, nearly 342. Total coal output tons 1.57 billion. And then energy production quite high there as well. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to um, go through this whole dashboard here. So net coal output, 36 billion there in 22. That was as a result of the increased demand from the war at the Ukraine. And then in 18, went down to 17.91 and then 14.22 there in 2024. Okay, so not making as much revenue there comparatively to when the downward pressure went on the energy market with the war in the Ukraine back in 22, over the past sort of few sort of calendar years there. Um, After 2019, production volumes began to flatten and then decline. Okay, so we can see here that they flattened out after 2019 as far as net coal energy production goes, which is the blue there, 5,300 petajoules. And just to give you guys a bit of an idea, it's around 1,000 petajoules to run the household electricity in the Australian economy, as per previous videos. And then we can sort of see that flattened from there. And we then saw a bit of a decline from here. Okay, so you know, not sort of the best. This is where many analysis stop and conclude that coal is in structural decline. But tons alone don't tell us how much usable energy the system is actually producing here. Okay, so we can sort of look at the comparison here between the average coal price. This is from the pink sheet from World Bank, I believe. So we can see that, commodity prices here have changed, and that has changed the revenue generated here from the Australian economy from or Queensland economy for coal. So you can see here that the average coal price $136 in 24 dollars per megaton, 172 here, and then 344 there. So you can see that when there's heavy demand and limited supply of coal increases prices, and as a result, production increases because the big mining companies try and produce, or big coal companies try and produce more coal. Okay, so that's kind of how that one works there. Next, we're going to um, this is why converting coal into energy equivalent units like petajoules sort of matters. So over here, these are all our petajoules. So this is the total net coal energy production in petajoules, followed by the total net coal output. Okay, so the net coal output is what is needed to um, produce the net coal energy production, if you like. So that's the total amount produced, and then that's the net coal sort of output used to produce. My understanding is there. Um, and then over here we have the larger mines. And we can sort of have a look here on the pie chart. I can go in here and have a look at this open cut mine and so forth. And I can just have a look here and see what these guys have done. Okay. And I can go and pinpoint through here. I can look at Juniella, Riverside here, making up, 14.33% of the market through the 22 to 24 period here, with a total coal output value there of $49 billion. Okay. Blackwater Mine next. Okay. 38.2 billion. Total coal output in tons, 175 million there. And then the cumulative coal energy production is 81K there. Okay. So that cumulative there, that is, how much it's made in terms of the total net coal energy production over time. All right. So that's the first one there. So um, next, I just want to touch on when we convert net coal output into petajoules, the decline is far less pronounced. In fact, energy equivalent production remains relatively stable across much of the last decade. That tells us two things. Coal quality matters more than volume. Mines are increasingly optimized for higher yield output. In other words, fewer tons doesn't automatically mean less energy. So two other key points here, the 22 price spike driven by global supply disruption and European demand rerouting. And despite falling volumes post 22, realized value per ton remains structurally elevated. So next I'm going to touch on the energy yield variance, okay, across the page. This is the net coal energy production versus the total net coal output by year. When we look at the energy yield variance, the difference between the raw coal output and usable energy production. So this is the energy yield variance petajoules and the percentage. Okay, so that is this line graph over here. Okay, we can see that the energy yield variance between the coal um, produced and the coal output. Okay, what that sort of that difference between the two is there. So that's the difference between these values over here. Okay, which is the net coal energy production, net coal output. What we're sort of referring to here. Periods where energy yield improves tell us systems is producing coal with higher calorific value or better processing efficiency. This isn't demand weakness, it's operational selectivity, geology, and capital discipline. And this distinction becomes critical once prices enter the picture. Okay, and we can sort of see what's happened here. So average coal price and output overlay in 22, the global energy system experienced a shock. The war in Ukraine disrupted gas flows into Europe. Coal demand surged as a substitute fuel, and Asian buyers were forced to compete for supply. Coal prices spiked sharply, but here's the key insight. Prices did not return to pre-2022 levels. Which is this over here. Here, I should say. Even as volumes fell in 23 and 24, release value per ton remained structurally elevated. This tells us the market isn't pricing abundance, it's pricing scarcity and reliability. When we multiply production volumes by prices, the result is striking. And this is the net coal output value by year. Okay, so over here, net coal output in tons by year. We've got it here both in tons and in petajoules in a line graph comparing the two. There's a very strong relationship here between these two variables. Despite lower tonnage, total coal output value remains disproportionately high. This confirms a structural shift. Coal is no longer a scale game, it's a marginal supply game. In energy constraint markets, what matters is not how much you can produce, but how reliably you can deliver the energy. The next part I want to touch on is mine concentration risk. Another important insight comes from looking at production by mine. Okay, so that's this down here. So a relatively small number of large open cut mines dominate Queensland's coal output and value. So I can have a look here. I can do some insights here for each particular mine, but I can also come back here to my other dashboard and have a look here on my tree map, okay? And I can look at the total net coal output by mine and go through here and have a look at what those market relationships are there, what the efficiency is here in each particular coal mine, as far as production goes. Okay, so a relatively small number of large open cut mines dominate Queensland's coal output and value. We can see that sort of here, that this one here, Goonyella, is open cut. And I can see that this Curragh one is open cut as well. Clermont is open cut. Okay, that concentration with open cut increases exposure to weather events, industrial action, and in addition to rail and port disruptions. This is why global coal markets react so sharply to even small supply disruptions. So if you're sitting there and thinking, what does this all mean? Um, Domestic coal consumption in Australia is declining. That's no longer the economic driver. Queensland's coal production is shaped by global energy security, Asian industrial demand, and constrained supply dynamics. When measured in energy terms, coal remains systematically important, even as volumes fall. The biggest mistake in energy analysis is focusing only on tons. When you look at coal through the lens of energy prices and global demand, a very different picture emerges. And for Queensland coal, that story is far from over. Thank you for listening to the BI Edge today, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Cheers.